Hey you guys, Charlie here. Welcome back to Conquering Kerbal Space Program. It's been a long time, and I have a couple of contracts here that I want to get started with. We're going to do quite a few contracts in this episode. The first one we're going to start with is the Sun Space Station. All right, this is a space station that we need to have in solar orbit, and it's basically the same as all the other stations, except look at how much it's going to pay us. Oh yeah, that money is going to be nice for our mission. So we're going to be doing the Sun Station first, and this is the craft that we've come up with to do it. It's pretty much the same as the rest of the stations, but we've got a bunch of different stuff at the top. Since I'm not going to be really using the Sun Station, I thought we might as well make it useful, even though I'm not really going to be doing much with it, unless a contract says I should do something with it. This is going to be a communications hub that's going to allow us to reach a whole bunch of other places, and by a whole bunch I mean every other place in the solar system, all in one craft. So this is just this giant communications hub, and you'll notice a couple of parts or a couple of satellite dishes you may not recognize, or these little ones that are kind of sticking out but they're closed and collapsed. So I wanted to show you what this one looks like. It's a pretty big dish. It opens up. It has an 800 gigameter range. It's going to reach Erlum for us. It's going to reach Plok. It's going to reach a bunch of places, so it'll be great. And so by doing this, I can, I guess, give Kerbin and pretty much every other vessel, or pretty much every other ship, a way of communicating with the rest of the solar system all in one place. Now, I probably will need another hub for the times where this station is behind the sun, because our signals can't travel through the sun. So I'll probably need another station that's kind of orbiting in a little bit different pattern, just to sort of bounce signals around. But for now, this is going to be great, and this is going to help us communicate with places that we can't do from Kerbin alone. So that's how I'm going to use this station. So we are going to be lifting off here. You guys have seen these liftoffs before. There's not a whole lot here left to show you. I really wish, and I know you guys have been following the series for a while. I know it's been a while since my last upload. It's been 10 days actually. I wish I could do it faster. I really, really do. You guys have no idea. I every night or every morning I wake up, or every night I go to bed. It's either one or the other. It usually is at least once a day. I think to myself, man, I really wish I could have put Kerbal Space Program up on YouTube today. Like, I really wish I could have played today. You know, like there's that. It happens every single day. Work schedule's getting in the way, so it's going to continue for the near future. This delay in uploads. Sorry about that. Hopefully you guys, I mean, I'm sure you guys have a ton of stuff to entertain yourself while that's happening. You guys probably have dozens of people you guys follow for all sorts of different games, so I don't find myself to be unique in any way, but I do appreciate the patience, and I do appreciate you guys sort of hanging out and waiting for the next upload. We're going to try to do it as best we can. So here I am, just kind of getting an escape trajectory to get out of Kerbin. That's all I really want to do. I just want to escape Kerbin, get it into a solar orbit, and then before I leave the sphere of influence, I get all my satellite dishes pointed where they need to be. There are two little ones with 40 gigameter range. Those are going to be pointing at Moho, and someplace else I don't remember. I don't remember where I put that one. And then there's the mid-range ones, the Reflectron KR-14s. Those are pointing to Eve and Duna and Drez. We've got the slightly longer range, the ComSat-1, I think is what they are. They're pointing at Jewel and also a couple of Jewel's moons. And then we have the big dishes, which are pointing at Sarnus, pointing at Elu. They're pointing at Erlum. They're pointing at Plok. They're pointing at all the outer planets, or the outer planetary, the outer planets mod, and all the outer planets that were added by that mod. They're all pointing at those. And then a couple of them in various different ranges, which I don't really know why that would be necessary, but I'm probably going to end up tweaking it, and probably going to end up shifting some dishes and their purposes around, because I do have a couple of extra dishes on here. But a couple of them are pointed at active vessel, and a couple of them are pointed directly at Kerbin. One is pointed directly at Kerbin. One of the big dishes, the big orange ones, is pointed directly at the IP relay that's in a polar orbit around Kerbin. And then one of the ComSat ones, I think, is pointed at Kerbin in general. So we'll have coverage continuously, provided, of course, that the sun is not between us. and Kerbin. And even if that's the case, if this station is really going to be useful for the times where we are traveling like to the outer planets, and it's going to take years to do that. So even if there are intermittent times where we don't have a connection because the station and Kerbin have the sun between them, just wait a couple months and it'll be back, because the sun station is not going to be in an orbit that is like really close to Kerbin's. It's going to be a little bit different. We're going to have it go inside just a little bit and outside just a little bit, just to provide a little bit of diversity in orbital periods, so that I can make sure I don't have a really long period of time where I have no communication. So we will have a maneuver in the future to sort of circularize this station to be somewhat between Kerbin and Duna as far as where its orbit is. But after that, we have another mission to do, and the contract that we are doing now says that we need to provide crew to the moon station. Now, I don't really want crew on the moon station. I don't really have an interest in using the moon station yet. I kind of keep saying that, but it's true. I don't really have a purpose for it in my plans anyway, in my master plan, if you will. Just going off of Elon Musk's Tesla master plan, which is awesome, I think, if he can pull it off, of course. Here is the thing, though. These contracts pay really well, and I'm going to do it anyway. So what I'm decided to do here is I'm launching this rocket, again, trying to make as little space junk as possible. And in this case, I've got kind of a weird way of keep getting rid of the space junk, but it's very effective. Just by when I detach things at the right period of time, I can eliminate all the space junk. So getting myself in a maneuver with the station, and the contract does require me to dock to the station. It says I have to have 2 Kerbals and I have to dock to the station. So that's what we're going to be doing here. I get myself a rendezvous, get myself sort of lined up with that said rendezvous. I don't have the RCS thrusters. I don't have them perfectly centered. I thought I did, but then I added parachutes after the fact, and it added weight and kind of threw it off. So every time I move sideways, it actually adjusts my nose up a little bit. So whatever. I can handle it. We can do it. So there is a little bit of struggle here with the RCS, trying to get it around, because again, going to the left or going to the right completely sideways tends to lead to me also tipping my nose a little bit. So, but I do get myself eventually lined up and going towards the target to dock to the space station. And once I dock to it, the contract is complete. I don't have to transfer any crew or anything like that. I just dock to the station and be like, oh, yep, it's good. I verify it in the contract window that, yep, the contract is complete. For whatever reason, the telescope is bugged. It's a blank blue screen. It doesn't really work that well. So that's a bummer. I'm hoping that that's just a mod conflict that will get fixed, hopefully in the near future with 1.1.3. But in any case, there's no reason to stay docked to the station anymore, so undock and head back to Kerbin. That is all we needed to do. And unfortunately, and maybe it's fortunate, I don't know, maybe it's kind of a way of farming money, I don't know. But by doing the contract this way and by just detaching from the station and going back home from like that, the contract ends up complete. But Station Science, the mod that's sort of managing the station contracts, it doesn't really register that I have crew there. So it's going to keep giving me the contract that says send crew to the moon station. It's going to keep giving me that contract. I don't know how to prevent that. I guess I could just do it over and over and over again. It does net me a couple $100,000, a couple 100,000 pesos every time I do it. But I don't know. I think I might just let that expire every time it does it. Because again, I don't really care. I just wanted the station up. Again, maybe there's a use for it in the future, and if that's the case, then we'll totally stock it and we'll totally do it. But I don't know it right now. So once I'm in the atmosphere and I can pretty much guarantee that docking port is not going to end up in space, I can detach it from there. That reveals the parachute underneath it. Then once we slow down, I can turn myself sideways, let the aero forces disconnect me from the tank. That tank has armed parachutes already on it, so hopefully we can recover them. I would later find out that that tank would explode instead. Instead of being recovered, the parachutes did not open like they were supposed to. I don't know. So anyway, there's that. That contract is complete. So we have 2 more contracts that I want to do now. And these 2 contracts, originally I was going to use our SSTO to do it. Because what I want to do with these 2 contracts is I need to recover the recover that module that's floating around Kerbin, that big weird looking gas tank, which I totally have access to in my parts list, and I'm actually going to incorporate that part into the station because it actually kind of, the way it fits together is kind of nifty and it looks pretty good, and it's very, very useful as far as tanks go for storage. So I like that idea. Then the second part is this little satellite here, which is going to scan for resources on Kerbin, which is another contract we have to do. But you know what? I get up there, I get all this situated, and I'm like, you know what? That's a really expensive little craft. It was like 300 and something thousand. And I was like, given my track record of being able to, come back to Kerbin successfully with this SSTO and having not had any time to really adjust it and tweak things yet, I think it might be just cheaper and easier to do this with a rocket. So I go ahead and I fit a rocket to this instead. And the idea here is a couple of things. One, I need to have enough fuel to get up there and enough oomph, enough force to get up there, but I also need to carry with me that little satellite. And so I'm gonna put a cargo bay on this rocket, and I'm gonna stick my probe that I wanna use for scanning Kerbin. I'm gonna stick that in the cargo bay and then release it when we get up to space. And so I adjust some tanks. I try to balance my delta V so I have as much as possible just to get it up to orbit so I don't have space junk. I want to have it just enough to get to orbit, but not really. We've got this thing here that works really well. I tried to fit a fuel. I wasn't sure if the cargo bay was going to allow fuel to transfer through it to the other tank. So I was going to do a fuel line there, but after doing it, I realized that it didn't do anything. It just added weight, so I said screw it. So this is what we've got on the front. We've got, on the very front of this rocket, we've got the claw mechanism. And that claw mechanism has a bunch of parachutes attached to it. The idea here, and it's kind of a clunky idea in real life, probably wouldn't work, but in Kerbal Space Program, you can do things in a video game that you can't do in real life. And so the idea here is we're gonna go up there, we're gonna grab a hold of that tank, we're gonna deorbit both the claw and the tank, bring it back down, and then the parachutes that are on the claw will open up and have the whole thing slow down enough to where everything lands safely. Provided, of course, we don't burn up in the atmosphere. So once we get up to space and we're almost in orbit, we're not really almost in orbit, but I did open the cargo bay because I needed my solar panels and stuff. I wanted a little extra solar energy. And I was getting ready to release this probe, but I wanted to do it just enough to where I don't want to waste any fuel basically, so I don't need to be too high, get myself barely in orbit, and then decouple this, control it, nose it down, get it out of here, and we need to essentially get this into as close to a polar orbit as possible. I can't do that. I don't have enough fuel to get it into a fully polar orbit, but the hope here is that I have enough fuel to get it into enough of an incline to where I can scan 75% of the planet's surface, because that is the contract. Do a multi-scan, a biome scan of 75% of the planet's surface. So that's what I have to do here. So there's two separate missions being done here with two separate crafts. And yes, to those who are really observant, that science thing was totally on upside down from what I intended. And the one of the little probes does go straight through the solar panel, but that doesn't matter. We have some instrumentation on this satellite in case there's a contract that requires us to do a certain experiment at a certain altitude and a certain inclination and all that stuff. So that's why there's science experiments on that satellite. All of this stuff nets me a ton of money. I didn't spend more than I'm gonna make or anything, so it's perfectly fine. And this craft here now has to get itself situated to where I can deorbit this tank and then go and do what I need to do. So that's the goal. I'm gonna arm the parachutes now. We're gonna just make sure they're all armed so I don't forget it later. And so they're all programmed to go off at around 10K and open fully at around 900 meters. That should be plenty to slow the thing down. That should be plenty to do everything we need to do. And so now it's just a matter of getting a maneuver set up to rendezvous with the tank. So once I got the maneuver set up and I'm good for timing here, I noticed I have a little bit of time, and I figured, well, you might as well just get this thing into an incline now since you have the time to do it. And so, I start playing around with the science experiments. I start playing around with some of the instrumentation, and then, I guess there's not really much to talk about on this little probe here. I just need to fit the conditions of the contract and do it. So that's what I'm doing. So you can see this satellite is scanning Kerbin there, and we go around the planet getting ourselves as much as possible close to where we're gonna have to sort of pivot and adjust our incline a little bit more. and I run out of fuel. So this is the maximum amount of incline I can have. This satellite is now hopeless in space. It can't go anywhere. This is all it has. And we're basically stuck in this incline, which again is not polar enough to scan it for resources, but it's polar enough to do the biome scan and hopefully get 75% coverage, which I think is probably doable. We already have about 30-something coverage, 30% or so, so I think it's probably fine. So now we go back to our claw mechanism, and we've already done our maneuver to get ourselves rendezvoused with this thing, or we're about to do the maneuver. So now we go back to our claw mechanism, which is orbiting around Kerbin, getting ready for its maneuver, and yeah, that's pretty much it. We're just going to push ourselves out. I get rid of the interface really quickly, just so I can have a nice thumbnail. And yeah, now it's just a waiting game until we get close enough to where we're going to rendezvous with it. And you can kind of see the little meeting point there. You'll see it as we go around near the day side. You can kind of see it now in the interface. We are going to be 1.6 kilometers away from our target at its closest point, which I think is a pretty good rendezvous. I think we do have a lot of speed to kill off, but thrust to weight ratio, not a problem here with this, and we got plenty of fuel to do it, so we'll just kill the speed off, and we will get ourselves, get everything, our relative velocity, if you will, get that all zeroed out, and then make our way towards the thing. And grabbing this thing is a little bit more, I guess I should have probably thought ahead on how I was going to grab the thing. Ideally, I want to grab it at one of the sides, so that I'm grabbing it right in the middle and it's equal and everything's balanced, and you know, it kind of looks a little bit like a heat shield kind of thing. And I figured I would be going down into the atmosphere with the tank leading the way, but because it's so big. But I mean, it's also empty, so it doesn't have a whole lot of weight compared to the rest of this craft. So we're gonna end up going down backwards, and not really all that balanced, as you'll soon find out by how I end up grabbing this thing, because it's not the easiest thing to grab. And if you don't get yourself oriented the proper way the first time you try, well, then the thing is going to start spinning around. And so, yeah, I tried to sort of get myself some velocity to hit it, and I missed, and yeah, there was a whole bunch of stuff there. So, but it's okay. It's not like I haven't done this before. We've rendezvoused with things in the past, and we've grabbed things in the past. It's not that different from anything else we've done. It's just re-entry is a little bit awkward because I don't end up grabbing it equal. I don't end up grabbing it how I wanted to grab it. But the important thing is that we did grab it, and so that's it. We have a hold of it. We're going to take it with us into the atmosphere. We get ourselves into a deorbit burn, if you will, to get ourselves ready for re-entry at the right, I don't know if it's the right angle, but, you know, whatever. It's close enough to where I'm hoping, anyway, we don't burn up, pretty much. I think I have my periapsis around, like, I don't know, 40, 35, I think, which is probably too high. But it is what it is. I don't remember what it is, and I don't have Kerbal Engineer, so I can't really, you know, see it at the top of the screen. It is what it is. So we're going to be entering. I'm trying to get myself to enter and land in the ocean just past the KSC. So that's sort of the objective. And I feel like the way we're going to be flailing around in the atmosphere, because most likely I'm going to have to rotate this thing. That's my idea anyway, because of the way I grabbed it, there's no way that we're going to be just going straight in controlled. So probably going to have this thing flail all over the place. And luckily, my parachutes are armed already, so I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about timing it just right. And the other reason to arm the parachutes ahead of time is, as you might have guessed, because the only antenna we have to communicate with this unmanned probe is the Communitron 16, which will snap in the atmosphere. So as soon as atmospheric forces hit this thing at a high enough velocity to break that antenna, I will lose connection with this whole thing. So at that point, it's kind of at the mercy of, well, atmospheric pressure, heat, gravity, and, well, the parachutes staying connected to the vessel and opening at the proper time. So yeah, the heaviest part of my craft, go figure, is not the empty fuel tank. And that's the part that's going in there. Now I'm gonna go around in circles a little bit here. This is intentional. This is not something that's happening because of the forces or anything. I'm intentionally doing this. Now you could see right there, just after a little bit, that was the antenna snapping. So now you get to see what it's like for this craft to just ragdoll as it's supposed to be, or ragdoll as it's going to be. But by the time the antenna crashes, or by the time the antenna detaches itself, we're already low enough to where it doesn't really matter. And so the parachutes will deploy themselves just as they're supposed to. Everything's peachy there. And when it gets down to about 900 meters remaining, that's when the chutes will open all the way up, and we will be, slowing ourselves down. And as I can see from the speed, easily a safe enough speed to land, safely. So we'll end up landing in the water and everything is safe. We'll recover the vessel and all things are fine. And so I do a quick check for our contracts and I notice that we have additional contracts with the probe that I have orbiting around Minmus. This probe is paying for itself so much. So right now it's orbiting around Minmus with a huge tank of fuel. Like, it's got way more fuel than it needs. Like I said, I'm probably going to send this thing off to somewhere else when it's done, if it ever completes its contracts, because right now its contract is to do yet another orbital survey with the same experiments that it has installed on it at the same, really everything, all the conditions are already met in the orbit that it's in. It already meets the incline, it already meets the eccentricity requirements. I just have to do the experiments over again. So this probe is now orbiting around Minmus, completing 2 contracts simultaneously. It just takes time in orbit. And then once it's done doing that, I get to move the satellite to complete another contract. So this little thing, I forget what it cost. I think it was like $50K or something to launch up in the air. It might have been more because of the science contracts or the science experiments. But this little thing, this little probe, ends up like paying for itself by like 20 times in my investment. It's pretty great. I like it a lot. It's gonna make me over $1 million, so it's pretty great. You'll notice on the contract screen there in Capcom, once again it says send crew to the moon station. I go ahead and I time accelerate past that part, so no big deal. And then I get one that says test shoot at the launch pad, which is pretty easy to do, so I'll just take care of that, no problems. But I noticed in Kerbal Alarm Clock that the MOHO probe has a maneuver, and it's getting ready to go. Of course, it's already in the flight computer, so I don't need to do anything. We already have it timed into the flight computer. We do have a connection to this because we have a dish on the top, so we're going to be able to communicate with it on a regular basis, even though it has kind of old tech on it. So yeah, we are out of electric charge, but that's okay. We have just barely enough in the reserve power to keep us going, and then the engines will fire, and that will charge the battery a bit more, and that will allow me to rotate this thing so that those solar panels are no longer, kind of facing in a strange way. I don't know why I left the thing facing in a strange way, but I did. I'm not entirely sure. Like, I didn't really plan this probe very well, guys. The MOHO probe is not what you do. Don't try this on your own game, all right? This is sort of like a dummy's experiment into the wild because he hasn't been there before. That's pretty much what this probe is. But we'll see where it ends up. That's going to be an adventure. So anyway, we are here at the KSC. I've got all sorts of stuff to do still. I've got work to do. I've got a station to build. I've got science to explore. There's all sorts of stuff that I have to eventually do. And I am going to do a few of these contracts off camera because, like, they're just kind of like this one here where I have to just test the chute landed. Like, okay, it's easy. Do a biome scan of Kerbin. That's the one I'm waiting for. You can see that we have about 35%, 38% or whatever that is covered. And yeah, so the rest of our contracts are kind of a little bit boring. I still have to do the extract ore from Minmus, but that has a lot of time left in it, and I can do a base on Minmus, and once I get the base on Minmus, then I can start doing that, because there's like 13 years plus, like almost 14 years until I have to complete that contract. And it's worth a little bit of money, but I mean, proportionally to what it's asking me to do, it's not going to make me much money. So I'm kind of focusing on the ones that'll make me a bunch of money. And then once I get a base on Minmus and I'm, kind of good there, then I can look at, kind of creating something and building something that will let me to do it. So then we have, Minmus random science. There's all sorts of contracts. So anyway, guys, again, I wish I could do these videos faster. I wish I could do these more often. Thank you so much for your patience and for sticking with me. And I hope to have videos up more than once every 10 days. When I first started this series, I was averaging more than one per day. It was like some days I would even upload 2 or 3 videos. I think one day I actually uploaded 4 in one day. But that was back when I already had a bunch of footage kind of stored up. I didn't have to play to make the footage and then edit it. Now I have to play and make the footage for that playthrough and edit it. And this video here is about 4 days worth of playing, or like I had to sit down and get up, and 4 different days worth of playing all jammed into one episode. So anyway, I'm blabbering and talking your ear off. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Like if you like the video, subscribe if you want to know when more are available, and hopefully I can do it faster. So anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.